Namaste. Welcome back to Mindful Serenity Yoga, or Waking Up in a Busy World. We're going to continue with our answering the questions that are in this jar. And I will pull out one question at a time and do my best to answer it within a 10-minute time frame. So reaching down and in, I will pull out a question. Hoping this is not too complicated. Oh, this is a toughie. I already started the timer. So damaged by trauma, what can I do to be normal? So damaged by trauma, what can I do to be normal? Take a deep breath. I'm going to begin by encouraging this person to, first of all, seek some help outside of themselves, outside of this. I am by no means a professional, nor can I give advice in this area other than what I experienced myself and share my learning. But I would encourage this person to have the support of a counselor or the support of a support group or family members or partner or friends to help deal with this before we begin any further. And I can't stress enough that I am not a professional in the area. This individual is needing help, possibly. So damaged by trauma, what can I do to be normal? Two words stick out to me when I read this question right away, and the first word is trauma, and the second word is normal. I think we're all conditioned to be normal. We're conditioned to strive for normalcy. Strive to be like everyone else, and that's all normal means, right? To be as much like everybody else as we can be. Normal is a very damaging and destructive word as far as I'm concerned, because normal is not necessarily healthy. If we look at the mindsets of most of the individuals around us, we would see that they're not healthy. We all have this tendency to be lost in a busy world and stuck in our thoughts, and most of those thoughts, as science has proposed, are negative. So there are many wounded people on this earth trying to be normal, in the sense that they are hiding their wounds from view. They are stuffing and repressing and suppressing and denying and avoiding the pain that was caused by the initial wounding, by sticking a second arrow into the suffering, which is what we do with it in our minds. So normal mind is not, as far as I'm concerned, a healthy mind. So if this individual were to say to me, what can I do to be normal? I'm so damaged by trauma, I would say, well, you probably already are normal. I mean, there's several different degrees, and this will get to the second word that stood out, and that was trauma. There's several different degrees of trauma and trauma suffering and what we endure as human beings in the realm of suffering. But most of the individuals, most of us, are somehow wounded. We're the walking wounded. We carry within us wounds from our past, or our not so distant past, from things that have happened to us or were brought upon us, or things sometimes we ourselves have done to ourselves. So first of all, for the normal word, I would encourage the person not strive to be normal. Strive to be healthy. Strive to be wholesome. Strive to be skillful in your means of coping with this degree of suffering that you term as trauma. And secondly, I would say that let's look at the word trauma now and what trauma is. Trauma is definitely a wounding, usually a very deep and dramatic wounding that has led to such a painful experience that it's hard to keep it in the conscious mind. It's hard to deal with it in the conscious mind. So we do what most people would say, most psychiatrists would say, is causing the major issue of our lives, is the repressing and the suppressing, the stuffing this emotion down away from conscious awareness, away from our daily lives. So we have stuffed it so far that it has become a clump of residue inside us. It has become a unhealed wound. I know in nursing, when we talk about wounds, there's several different things that can happen with a wound, and a wound will naturally heal by itself if we allow it to drain, if we allow it to, keep it clean. We don't keep picking at it, stabbing at it, and whatnot. It will heal on its own in most cases. But in some cases, in our ability to hide the wounds from ourselves, we create a layer of tissue over the original wound, and in the nursing world we call this eschar, which is very thick and hard, and it hides the initial wound from the visual experience, right? It hides it from our conscious mind. But the tissue underneath the eschar in a real wound is not healing, it's not granulating, it's not pink, it's not coming together. It stays open and raw and infected underneath. So that's what I look at a lot of times when I talk about people who are walking wounded. They're like a layer of eschar, a veil, a thick veil over their wounds, so that they're hoping that nobody else sees it and nobody else has to deal with it. And they, more importantly, don't have to deal with the original pain from the original trauma. They have stuffed it down so much because it is just too painful to deal with. So I see that a lot when I see trauma in myself and the other individuals that I know that have had trauma. And this veiling keeps the original wound from being healed. So we have the pain of trauma to deal with, but we have what the Buddhists would refer to as the second arrow to deal with in trauma wounding. And that is this need to keep it down. Often results in us putting a second arrow into the same wound. The more we stuff and repress our emotions doesn't mean that we are actually getting rid of those emotions. The pain actually grows, like the infection underneath the layer of eschar. It grows and it's not healing and it's infected. And if anybody comes around and says something that triggers you or brings you back to that trauma, you feel the original pain all over again, and it's constantly being picked at and hit with this second arrow of suffering that the mind does with it by simply resisting the original pain. None of us like pain. Nobody likes to feel pain, and it's almost natural to try to avoid pain. But it becomes a pathological process when the avoidance of this pain becomes our only or our most important motivation in life, to prevent it from getting triggered by people who tend to hurt us, or situations that cause fear that will bring us back to that original pain again, or to avoid pain altogether because we just feel like we're just so overwhelmed with the pain from the original trauma. So that is the second arrow of suffering, and that is what we can do with trauma if we're not careful. So when this person asks, I'm so wounded by trauma, I don't know what to do, I would simply say, okay, well, you definitely need help. But healing is only going to begin at the deeper levels. So you can do all the superficial healing you want and hiding under this and pretending this trauma doesn't exist and do all the affirmations you want in the mirror. But until you dig deep down to the original wound, with of course a lot of help, expert help and support, deep down into the original wound and get to the root cause of that wounding, to see it as pain, and then to accept and acknowledge what we've done in an attempt to protect ourselves from that pain by the resisting, the suppressing, the repressing, the avoiding, the keeping people away that we think might hurt us, or avoiding situations that we think might trigger that pain, and allowing it all to just come up, to experience all the pain we've laid on top of the trauma, and then to experience the original trauma pain. We have to experience pain. We can't avoid it. And that is the truth of dealing with trauma, which is not what people want to hear, but we can't run from it. We can't escape from it. We can only stuff so much. When we stuff, it doesn't go away. It just comes up in other ways, less healthy ways. Like I said, our life becomes so limited in an attempt to protect our trauma pain from being triggered or picked at or poked at. And most of us, who we truly are, lays hidden under that veil of eschar, or that veil of protection, unhealthy protection that we put around ourselves, or unhealthy armor, so that we do not experience that pain. Life becomes all about avoiding pain. Avoiding the pain that we're experiencing in the here and now, and avoiding the pain of what happened in the past that caused the original trauma. So it's simply a matter of being open and willing to experience all emotions, even the painful ones, so that we can heal at the deepest level. And what we do in nursing when we see this eschar on a wound is we do something called debriding. You have to be skilled to do this. You have to have training and practice to do this. You have to have the support of the team to do this. But you originally just peel off the unhealthy tissue to expose the broken and infected tissue underneath, and then you allow that to heal. And that's what we do with our own wounding from trauma. We have the help and support of a team. We develop wholesome and skillful ways of being through a practice. We need to practice and learn these skills. And then we begin to slowly and meticulously peel off that veil that's unhealthy, that you have used to protect us, realizing that it has never really protected us, it just limited our lives. So we begin slowly to remove that layer, so we can get to the wound itself, love and accept and allow the wound itself to express itself, and allow the healing to take place naturally from there. That's, I believe, what we do. And I don't know if that's helping the individual, but that's the process I've taken on in my own life to deal with my own trauma pain. And I think it is the way to go. But what do I know? I'm not an expert. Hoping that you do find some peace and do find some healing. Thank you.